Tonight on Best Ball Breakdown, we brought in a big time NFL GPP winner to talk how he uses his DFS experience to win Best Ball Mania tournaments. We brought Neil Orfield from Stochastic, and we will be right back. So, Neil, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Yeah. Thank you for having me back on the show. Good to see you again, Chris. Good to finally interact with Scott outside of Twitter. It's good to be here with you guys.
What's your best ball, landscape high level take just right off the top?
For like this season?
Yeah, for this season.
Crazy how early the top quarterbacks are going. Like and it makes sense after how well they did last year. But I mean, Mahomes you get at pick like 50 last year. I feel like it was really late. I think Hurts was like pick 70. Like it's been interesting to see the way the whole landscape has changed, and I feel like the edge kind of changes as the landscape changes. So yeah, kind of fun to to evolve as the game evolves.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. I'm actually in the process of updating Anatomy of a League Winner. That's the article I won Research Article of the Year award for. And yeah, so I'm just looking at the quarterback position through the lens of an ESPN 10 team league. And this really was like a massive outlier season for early round quarterbacks, where historically like 10 of the last 11 seasons, late round quarterback has been king. There's not much value in those early round quarterbacks, but last year was the outlier where you saw with Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, even Joe Burrow to an extent. So if you look at the top three quarterbacks versus the bottom three rostered quarterbacks, so that's QB 13 through 16, or bottom three starting quarterbacks, so that's QB 8 through 10, they provided on average a top three quarterback 7.1 fantasy points, or versus, the bottom tier replacement, something like 13.1. That was more than double any other season over the prior decade. So to me, I kind of think, you could argue that these guys are just juggernauts. Mahomes is one of the best to ever play the game. Allen is the closest thing to him in terms of arm talent, and he runs, and Hurts leads all quarterbacks ever in fantasy points per rushing fantasy points per start. So you could just say like, this is the new reality of the NFL. But I think from like a redraft perspective, I'm still going to mostly lean towards underpaying at quarterbacks. The difference for a best ball tournament like this is that sort of power law upside, spike week potential for those tournament weeks is really valuable. And then of course, stacking with those quarterbacks. But I mean, Chris and I, like Chris, we tend not to reach on a quarterback in the first 4 rounds unless it's, we have Chase and then there's Burrow, or we have Kelsey and then there's Mahomes.
Yeah, I think Mahomes is probably the only one we've taken on stream. I think for the most part, it's been later round guys, just the way the draft has played out. Neil, is there, as a person that you've had a lot of success in DFS in a variety of sports, particularly NFL Showdown, is there anything that you can take away from strategies you've used to win in DFS that you think you would apply to a best ball tournament like this? Or do you just think that's a totally different game and there's, so many other random variables that we just don't have a lot of strategies for yet?
Honestly, yeah. So I do think it is a very, very different game than DFS. I mean, just like not everybody that you draft is going to be in your lineup each week. It's obviously it's a very different game from DFS. I think, correlation being really important. I think it's really important in DFS. Obviously, I think it's just as important in best ball. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there is anything else. Like you can take advantage of kind of trying to figure out which defenses are going to be weak in like the playoff rounds, that kind of stuff, trying to take advantage of good matchups. That's similar to DFS. And I think just generally trying to zig where the field zags to some extent, like to try not to get bucketed into the same builds as everybody else. I think that's important in DFS. I'd say that's important in best ball as well. So I'd say those are probably off the top of my head, I'm sure there's more than that, but those are kind of off the top of my head, the biggest similarities to between DFS and best ball.
Yeah, that is definitely true. And Underdog actually announced a new structure for a tournament. They have not launched yet. We'll be definitely drafting that on the stream when they do, I'm sure, though, where every week is its own tournament. Scores reset each week. Every week, you know everything's the same. You do a draft like best ball, no in-season management, nothing. You're just competing in each individual week to win the top prize, which I think they announced the top prize of 20,000, but I don't think they announced anything else below that yet. I'm assuming there will be. That's just going to like totally change everything. I mean, week 17 is not the only thing that matters now. You kind of want to correlate players on the same bye weeks because then you have, you might be, you're not going to win 1 week, but you'd be at max as many players as possible for all the other weeks, and you really only have to win one of these weeks to. I think it's a $15 entry, so more than like you're more than covering your buy-in if you win one of these weeks. Even if you draft a good amount of teams.
Yeah, it's a cool structure. I know Scott said that he had not looked at it at all yet, but I'm excited about just looking at it. It's obviously it's a completely different game. Like it's not having to correlate at all for the playoffs. I mean, it's similar in that you're still going to want to correlate your quarterback as much as possible. Maybe not as much as possible. You want to correlate your quarterbacks with some pass catchers. A lot of ways very similar. I think I agree with the general sentiment, and you just named, I think, the general sentiment that I've seen on Twitter, that now you want to correlate your bye weeks. So like you said, like if you could have a team that's every player is week 13 bye week, like that's cool. Like you just give up that week 13, you give up one of those weeks, who cares? Yeah, I think that seems like sharp for the most part to correlate that. It's obviously, I think it's not something that I want to like overly prioritize. I think some people are going to hear that and be like, all right, going to get everybody from week 7 or everybody from week 13. Like, I don't think I want to go
that's not good.
out of crazy like that, but I do think it is. Yeah, it's a different like, and I know Scott. I watched you guys stream with Kyle Dvorak. I know Scott is not a bye week bro. I am a bye week bro for regular best ball. I think that this is you obviously can't be a bye week bro, or it's a different type of bye week bro for this thing.
Yeah, Scott has had us famously draft a team with only Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce in the onesie positions.
He's
so
a wild
Scott
man.
does not care about the bye week.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about how like you don't want to bucket yourself into the same kind of builds as everybody else. Like that's clearly one way to do it, where you're not going to be bucketed in with everybody else doing that kind of build.
Yeah,
I do think in this space, people are getting a little too into the weeds on the micro edges. Really, like even that includes, optimal stacking in week 17. I don't know that that's so much more important than stacking in week 16 and week 15. And then like even just stacking for the playoffs as a whole optimally, like is that going to provide a better edge than drafting optimally, like the right players? I would rather have like a perfectly drafted team than a team that's like perfectly correlated. And you see that with the last 2 winners is like all these analysts are like, well, he had Tyquan Thornton stacked with his opposing wide. And it's like, that could have just happened by chance. And like, right. I don't think that both of the last 2 winners, like their stacks really didn't move the needle in a big way.
I will say, so I agree with you about people getting too into the weeds with micro edges. To me, I think that being a bye week pro, I think that it's a little bit more like I understand it a little bit. Like the week 17 correlation, the requiring a bring back to me is less important than just correlating within your own team. And I think that people go way over the top to try to correlate week 17. Like a lot of top pros in DFS don't even have a run back. And now this is like way more remote. Like it's like you got to get there before it even matters. So I'm like, I feel like that's just far down the list of my priorities correlating for week 17. So I think that I'm generally with you in that people are going way too deep into the weeds. It's obviously a bonus if you can have a run back, but yeah, in general, I'd say that I'm with you that, and to your point of like looking at the past couple of years winners, it's also like, so we had Pat Kerrane win this year with a majorly correlated team, but like several.
I wouldn't call it majorly correlated.
With he correlated his quarterbacks with pass catchers, right? Like he had at least those correlations. I know that he focused, like he was trying to correlate his teams for the most part.
Right. So he had Tom Brady, who the only one with Tom Brady who went nuclear, and then he had Godwin, who had like a decent day. He didn't have.
He actually didn't
Evans,
have Mike Evans,
who scored 50. Yeah. It like to me that what it was like having Brady was what pushed him over. That it wasn't like the stack in and of itself.
Well, he also had Daniel Jones, so
Yeah, he didn't even use
who
that
like didn't
score.
provide points in the championship
Yeah,
round. So I think like we have to understand there's like a cost associated with everything here. And so it's like reaching a round on Calvin Ridley and then 2 rounds on Christian Kirk for Trevor Lawrence, or is it like reaching, 2 rounds for Joe? That's different than, having a stack fall to you naturally. And it's true too with like the Kelsey Mahomes team is like, okay, we could add a second quarterback and a second tight end, but like you're spending a roster spot on that where you get, okay, a guaranteed like 15 points for the bye weeks. And then like how often is around 15 quarterback really outscoring Mahomes? And like, if he outscores, like he's not outscoring Mahomes in the championship, like you don't want that to happen. Your team's probably not going to win if it's a Kelsey Mahomes team, but yeah.
But okay, so just to your point, so to be honest, I have not studied Karane's team all that closely, but what I was going to say is that like within the top 20 spots in the best ball final, like there were teams that were not correlated at all. Like it kind of was shocking to me how many of the teams in the final weren't correlated at all, which to me is like you could have the takeaway of maybe you just don't need to correlate, but I'm still trying to correlate all of my teams, at least like my quarterbacks with pass catchers. But it was interesting to me to see like outside of Karane's team, like there could have very easily been a team that won that was not at all correlated in the finals, and like how would that have changed the way we talk about things? It's kind of funny to think about.
To me, that is what's driving these championships outside of like rare occurrences where it's like having the power law players, like having Austin Eckler and Josh Jacobs and what the other guy, like top league winners were last year, like that's really moving the needle. And I think when stacking is at its most potent is when we're talking about like sophomore season Patrick Mahomes, where who would have won the underdog championship that year had it existed? It would have been a Chiefs homer who had all of Mahomes, Kelsey, Tyreek, Kareem Hunt, and just like all at obscene values. And I think we should factor in week 17 matchups. Like Chris has every single one memorized. I think that's important. I just don't want to be reaching too much for that. And to me, what I think is more interesting is like identifying an offense that's undervalued and could go nuclear that people are sleeping on. Sure. I'm just struggling to find one that really stands out this year.
Yeah. It's tough this year.
All right. We are going to be right back and then we will hop into a draft. All right, we are going to get in the draft here. Best Ball Mania 4. Neil, do you have a favorite spot you like drafting out of?
I'm a Vikings fan, so it's got to be the 101 for me.
Nice.
But I think that would be I like drafting on the bookends either way. I like the 1 spot and the 12 spot just to be able to know exactly every time I'm making a pick that I can count on this second pick as I'm making it, which is probably not actually like advantageous from a like actual EV standpoint, but from a comfort standpoint, I kind of like having back-to-back picks.
So we got the 109 here, which is we've actually been pretty lucky. I think we've generally had picks in the around the 1-5 at the latest. I don't know if we've drafted from this far back before, so this will be definitely a different structure than we have built on stream before. This is kind of like the tough spot for me because I think there is a top 6.
Only if Eckler goes.
Yeah, if Eckler falls to us, I mean, I would not mind that.
Because he's what, 9th?
Yeah.
There's still some chance that Travis Kelce falls to us.
That's my 101.
I listened to the pod.
Right.
I know that you love your Kelce.
We don't have to rehash it for the millionth time.
You can always get more Kelce. You can't get more Jefferson.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, Eckler is not a bad pick at 109. I definitely have taken AJ Brown over him occasionally just because I think the Eagles are going to be worse on defense this year and hopefully actually have to try to win in the fourth quarter a little bit.
I think it's a little bit like I hate taking Stephon Diggs or AJ Brown because I want to start setting up my stack so early. And it's like, well, I don't want to take the quarterback like in the early second round. So then I'm not going to get the quarterback with that stack, which, it's just kind of, maybe it's a little bit of an OCD thing that I'm like, man, I just don't want to draft these guys. I don't even know like how much better is AJ Brown going to be than Devontae Smith this year. I don't know. It's I prefer if I can't get a quarter or a wide receiver whose quarterback will come to me later on, I'd rather just go for a running back generally.
Yeah, that's kind of like when you build a stack in DFS and you're tying up like expensive guys like a Mahomes, Kelsey, or whatnot. Do you want to use all your early draft capital on one offense?
Right.
So I'm take it you guys want to go Eckler here.
That is my preference.
He's the top scoring running back over the past 2 seasons. Nothing about his environment is any worse. Given the contract situation, they're incentivized to run him into the ground. There's no backfield competition. So that we talked about teams to go all in on. If you guys want to go all in on the Chargers, I'm super about that. I really think you can't understate the impact of Kellen Moore to this offense. Dallas under him, best pace in the league, fastest pace in the league, most plays per game, throwing the ball downfield, where Herbert has an elite arm and this guy was just like checking it down all day. And so like maybe there's fewer cheap PPRs for Eckler, but that's overcome by, more sustained drives, more touchdowns. And so Keenan Allen stands out to me as one of the best values at the wide receiver position. Herbert, I love at quarterback. Gerald Everett's a strong value. If you want to gamble on one of the other wide receivers, that's fine. I kind of just prefer to stay away from Mike Williams.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm big on. I've been drafting some Mike Williams as well, taking shots there, and Quentin Johnson. But yeah, I'm with you. I like taking Herbert, stacking him with Eckler, at least one of the other receivers on the team. Always a fun build.
He ranked 3rd in MVP odds this time last year, and yeah, it wasn't the best season, but really still believe in his talent. Who stands out to you here right now as we're on deck?
I mean, CeeDee Lamb is he's fallen a little bit too low, and you can. Part of it is you can get his quarterback fairly late. You can, Dak doesn't go too early.
This is going to be our first CD share, but you're right. Yeah.
Is it really?
Round 1 ADP. I'm not a CD guy, but round 2, that's really good value, like you said.
Yeah, I haven't been really all over CD that much. I do kind of like taking Eckler in that back of the first round. If a Kelsey falls, like I said, AJ Brown. Even I think I even like Amon-Ra St. Brown more than him. But yeah, 6 picks past ADP. You're not going to get Eckler CD combos unless you reach for Eckler.
Yeah, I mean, if Amon-Ra was there, I think I would also prefer Amon-Ra probably.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sort of so I think Bijan going ahead of Eckler is crazy to me. I'm sort of like workshopping a tweet. I haven't figured out the combination yet, but it's just like if Jahmyr Gibbs had as many carries as Bijan Robinson, like, okay, he's 2019 Christian McCaffrey and Bijan is like what sophomore season Derrick Henry. It's just like the upside he has in terms of what he brings as a pass catcher, because targets are worth 2.5 times as much as carries. And I do think Tyler Algier is going to be more involved than we like, but then again, they're going to go so run heavy, and running backs were so efficient, and that's always been true of Arthur Smith. I just think, there's more risk there than people are willing to admit.
Yep, agreed. It's sometimes I will go with Bijan when we're at like where we are actually, like the 9 or 10 pick, when everybody that I actually want to take is gone, and I'm left with like, do I want to take Diggs or AJ Brown? Maybe I'll bet on the rookie. So I'm going to end up underweight to the 8.5 or whatever it is percent. I'm going to end up definitely underweight to the field on Bijan, but occasionally if he falls late enough, I'll take a shot here or there.
Where are you? Or go ahead, Scott.
The best counter to my disdain for guys like CeeDee Lamb and Bijan Robinson is, so the greatest best ball player of all time, you might not have ever heard of him, Neil, is Aaron H. Never published his last name. He's only known by Aaron H. So he dominated MFL best ball leagues for years. Where like his return rate, this isn't tournament style leagues, this is just 12 teams.
Is this the NFL 10s or whatever? I've heard.
Yeah. Okay. His return rate every single year was unreal, where he won like 35% of his leagues which is just like the chances of that happening randomly is impossible.
Yeah.
And he says he never deviates from like 8% when it comes to the first 3 rounds. Like he needs, because, you know, a guy gets hurt, that tanks you. If a guy smashes, it helps, but not a huge way. But Keenan Allen,
I'm good with it.
And where's Herbert going?
Like 55 or so.
Yeah, he goes 55. Yeah, so ideally he falls to us, not our next pick, but the one after that.
That's something after I just ranted
I don't think you want to
reaching for stacks. It's too much.
So the way this draft has played out, a lot of running backs have gone off the board compared to a lot of drafts that I've usually been in. Like usually Breece Hall is still available here. I think a lot of these teams are going to be trying to get wide receivers as they come back around. We have the only 2 stacking partners for the Chargers right now. No one else has a reason to take Herbert.
But then somebody's going to get 2 picks between us, right? So they're going to be able to take Williams and then Herbert. If they want to.
that is the one thing that can happen.
Yeah.
But the team that takes Williams, it could be one of these turn teams. So what we could do is you try to push it, and if you don't get it, then you could take like a Russell Wilson later and be like, all right, I don't have the QB, but this game goes off in week 17, and I've got just the other side of the QB, and one of Eckler or Keenan has a big game.
Or we get lucky and he falls, and then our team is just like that much better.
Yeah. I mean, yes, where is our next pick? We're at
we're at 40 and then 57.
Oh, so he wouldn't even have to fall that far to us.
No,
yeah. I'd wait there.
Right,
so you sound like do you like Gibbs or do you like ETN better?
I like Mixon, but that's me being me.
Do you like Mixon this high? Like, I mean, are you willing to reach for Mixon
with this pick? Yeah, but what do you guys think? I'm fine.
Do it up. Reaching. I mean, it's going to be a unique build. That's okay.
Yeah.
Is there a running back? I'm seeing it.
So if Mixon would, we had no worries about him being cut or whatever, I bet he would go basically right next to ETN. So if we're talking about closing ADP, I don't think that's really a reach because as far as I can tell, I'm pretty sure he's going to be on the team this year and have pretty much the same role, if not even a bigger role, because the guys behind him are less unproven than a Samaje Perine was last year.
That is true.
So, yeah, I don't hate reaching for him a little bit here. I probably would have taken Watson or even considered Mike Williams just to like really
right. Yeah, I think those are the 2 closest. So we didn't say this at the top, but I think Neil has the best DFS podcast in the space. It's called High Stakes, where he interviews like a DFS pro, a bunch of DFS legends, and interviews them and picks their brain. I really got a ton of value in that last year. I sat back and took notes. So my question to you, Neil, is like, what are some of the biggest takeaways you've got from doing that podcast that have helped you as a DFS player? And what advice can you give me? I think I'm a really good DFS analyst. I think I'm not that good of a DFS player. I finished top 3% at like an inordinately high rate. I finish in the green at an inordinately high rate, but I never finish first. So I'm a big stacker. So I think I'm doing that optimally. But yeah, what advice can you give me? And what are some of your biggest lessons learned from doing this show?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for that introduction to the podcast. So I think it's hard because so many of the players that I have had on have such different approaches. Like you've got I actually today I interviewed Tinderella, who's a long-term DFS pro. Funny name. But he refers to them as quants. Like there's the quants who just like have their programs and they just click buttons and it's all they've set it all up so that they don't actually have to watch the games. They just it's all automatic for them. And then there's the people who watch the games, and there's the Travis Petty who just like watches every basketball game and knows the rotations, knows the coaches' tendencies, stuff like that. Now, how is that actionable? That's a better question. So the fact that like some of the most successful DFS players in the world have very, very different approaches. I don't know that bit is actionable. So let me think a little bit more about what is the actual actionable take. I mean, I think one of them is everybody that I have on is not risk averse. Oh, hell yeah. There we go. We'll take that.
Nice.
Just the lack of risk aversion, I would say, is a pretty common theme among my guests. Like, people just are willing to take big shots.
I think it's tough for me to understand or just like hammer it into my brain that like to play optimally means to not just play optimally, like playing like the guys you think are the best. You have to embrace risk. You have to go a little more off the rails. And it's tough for me as an analyst where I start off the week like, okay, here are all the best plays. Here are the best cash plays. And then I'll find some guys I like way more than ownership. But it's like, and there's always going to be some guys who I like at like 0% ownership, but like, I'm like, listen, this play probably isn't going to hit, but there's that chance it pays off. But it's just like hard to like cape up for, like Demir Bird or whoever the fuck. So that's something I've always struggled with.
I mean, that it sounds like you have the right approach, to be honest. Like that is another thing that like I think just about everybody I've had on, not quite everybody, but just about everybody I've had on would say ownership plays a huge role for them. So like being risk averse, it sounds like typically ownership is generally efficient, like not 100% efficient, but I'd say it's like 95%. Like, people kind of know what they're doing, kind of get it right. Like they play the guys who project the best. You can generally expect the guys who project the best to have the highest ownership. So finding the right balance of, I mean, okay, we've got to make our pick here.
I liked Hollywood, but I guess Lockett. You make a case for Evans.
I like Lockett or Evans.
Yeah, let's lock. I like Lockett.
Let's lock it in.
That's good. That was really good.
Yeah.
And then maybe JSN comes back to it. No, he won't come back to us. I was gonna say we could do like a secondary correlation, but he's not coming back that far.
Yeah. He started to slip. He used to go.
He has
more than Lockett.
I had like none of him early on, and now I'm starting to like. All right, I'll take him at this ADP.
This is the range where Tony and Waller just hang, and then they both go the 2 picks in front of us, and I quit the stream and I cry like a baby.
Are you a big Waller guy?
Yeah, for sure. I think he's the best value at the position by far.
I think he is my highest exposed tight end.
All right, then you know what you're doing.
Oh yeah, love me some Darren Waller. Where he's fallen to.
I'm also slowly getting into some Gabe Davis as well, I have to say.
So I rarely take Gabe Davis unless I already have Josh Allen, which part of it is I think because I'm always trying to correlate at that point, but I don't know.
To me, he's like an epic spike week guy at worst. I mean, he had 4 touchdowns, 200 plus yards in that postseason game. And like, so I railed on him last year where John and everyone else was so all in. But now he's going like 10 spots or 5 spots below where he finished. He's going like 30 spots below his ADP from last year. And the guy picked up a high ankle sprain heading into week 2. That's an injury that, takes like 16 grade 1 takes like 16 weeks to heal. So you could really just like write off his entire season. And that's what like Sean McDermott has said in pressers as well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What were you going to say about the problem with Gabe Davis, Chris?
I was going to say he's just not very good.
Well, there's that. That could definitely be it.
That is good argument.
Do you know he has as many career regular season games with over 110 receiving yards as Jonathan Taylor? They both have 1. So maybe he's not a spike week. Yeah, maybe he just stinks. So that's definitely in the consideration.
He has that one spike week that we all remember really well.
Yes, right, exactly. I think that's what like if he played on the Eagles, he would be what Quez Watkins is to the Eagles offense. He is a field stretcher that opens things up for Diggs. The problem is the Bills just don't have like a good other option besides Diggs to like open up the underneath for him. They don't have a Dallas Goedert or
Mike Evans just went. Damn, they teased us with that. And Tony's gone and Waller's gone. Is that right?
Yep.
Motherfucker.
It's all over. Shut it down.
We could do the QJ stack. I don't know.
Oh yeah, we could or Brandon Cooks. I mean, I know you guys are not big on. It sounds like you're not big on the Dallas offense, but we did draft CD. So
yeah, not at all. But I mean, I'm cool with Cooks at this ADP.
Does Dak line up with our?
Oh,
Dak
we have
could line
inside
up
sources that Dalvin is signing with Miami in a week.
Really?
Yeah.
Should we do it? Or
I'd probably rather either Johnson or Cooks.
I'm good with either of them.
James Conner is probably the best running back value in drafts besides Mixon. Rashad White, I like. I love Elijah, but I'm also cool with QJ and Cooks. So
All right, let's go QJ.
whatever you guys think.
All right, so we have several good options that might fall back.
Yeah. So can you add to your queue Cooks, Cook, White, Connor? Yeah.
So okay, Dalvin Cook signs in Miami. That makes him? So he currently goes. So he just went, but he currently goes in the 7 to. I've seen him fall to the round 9 range. Is that? Man,
I think he's a great value too, because like I think he's way less cooked than Zeke is, but like people are treating him almost as though he's as cooked as Zeke.
Yeah, I probably.
He had that shoulder injury that bugged him for years, and last year he said it like really fucked with his confidence, where he was way less physical, and he finally got that fixed. And Miami's saying they want to run the ball way more this year.
Good offense that we expect.
What have running backs done in that scheme? Like assume Raheem Mostert played a full season once in his career. Like what would he have done?
All right, so being a bye week, bro, you know what my preference is here, because we already have Austin Eckler.
I just pretend bye weeks don't exist. I prefer James Conner though, so that
perfect.
All right. No David Montgomery.
We are aligned. At all? I also like David Montgomery. I'd be fine with that pick also.
I don't.
Okay.
All right, we've got consensus.
I would have liked him if I thought he would just be the Jamal Williams like touchdown scorer, but just from the pressers I've watched, they seem to have a lot of confidence in Gibbs to kind of just do it all. Not to say that they're going to be the bell cow, because he's not, because they're saying like all coaches are saying this now, is like with the extra week is like you need 2 running backs to make it through the whole season. They're all going to be banged up and all that. But it just seems to me like I would guess like just an arbitrary 60-40, 70-30 split where they just rotate drives and not have clearly defined roles.
Sure.
Neil, what's your approach been to the guys that aren't on teams right now? Like Dalvin Cook obviously goes way ahead of Zeke, Kareem Hunt, and Fournette. Are you off them? Do you think they sign with the team and they're immediately their ADP goes up, and that's enough of a reason to draft them now?
I would say I'm largely off all of them. I have not been drafting. I have no interest in Zeke. I just don't think Zeke is all that good, and I don't really see a landing spot where he's going to be like the bell cow back that you really want to have. And obviously he's not being drafted like he is, but if I had to draft one, it would probably be Lenny Fournette. Not really high on Kareem Hunt. I don't think he was that good. Like he went from like being the RB2, or 1B behind Nick Chubb to like just completely obsolete last year. So for me, it's been largely just not drafting those 3. Dalvin Cook. I think Dalvin Cook is obviously the best and being drafted like the best of the group. He's the most talented of those unsigned running backs. But I don't know. Maybe I'm underestimating the likelihood that one of these running backs signs somewhere and they say, oh, he's our veteran running back. He's the veteran leadership we need. We're going to give him half the carries, but I just don't expect it. What have you guys been doing?
Fournette's my favorite as well of the group. I've taken Cook a little bit here and there if he falls to the like round 9-ish range, which definitely happens. But Fournette, I think, is a guy that a team is going to see and be like, he can be a good pass protection guy for us. Like that's basically what he did for the Bucs last year. Even though he was not very efficient with anything he did, they still continued to roll him out there because Brady trusted him. I could see some other team falling into that, whether that's right or wrong. I just think that's what could happen. I do think Zeke is just done, and I don't know. I feel like he gives you even less in the passing game than Fournette does. And Hunt does really seem like he just doesn't have much left to him.
Yeah. So same page there.
Coming back up here, there's a
all right. Dak is still there.
Yeah, so Dak falling to us is certainly interesting. There's not really a wide receiver here. I feel like we have to have running backs, kind of the same deal. I definitely don't hate taking Dak here.
Are you expecting Dallas to be very run heavy this year? Is that your hesitation with Dak?
I think they're going to be massively inefficient and run heavy. I'd probably prefer something else, but this isn't a great ADP range, so I'm cool with it.
Yeah, if we taking the bet on CD makes it okay. Because I kind of do agree. I'm a little worried about how pass happy they'll be this year. So I haven't taken a ton of Dak unless I get a CD team like this, just because
this is your perfect opportunity to get a share of Dak.
Yeah, you've already made the bet, so you might as well.
Yeah. So I will also say that I'm not really a bet on, what am I trying to say? I'm not a player takes drafter. I am like the highest exposed player that I had. I think each of the past 2 years is like 30%. Like there are guys that I'll get up to 30%. I don't end up with like 50 or 60%, which I guess 30% is kind of high on some guys, but like it's never anybody who like you draft in the first couple rounds that I end up with 30%. So I kind of like the idea of just like, yeah, CD fell to us later than he should. This seems like a good opportunity to also bet on Dak falling to us at a reasonable ADP. So I kind of think that like with these players, particularly players that you don't draft a lot, when it happens to work out, they like you get the wide receiver. I think that it makes sense. Does that make sense to you to like, this seems like the right spot to get some exposure to Dak?
Yeah, that's definitely how I've generally been approaching things. I think there's guys that I take stands on that I don't like and like just don't end up with barely any of them unless they fall way past ADP. But yeah, I think my highest exposure guy last year was in the 25% range as well. I don't think I'll ever get to like the 50% range. I'd rather, but there'll be guys that I have close to 0% on, or if not zero. It's much easier to fade a guy than be like way on him. All right, so we're on the clock here. Juju, Allen Lazard, Odell, Sky Moore, Damien Harris.
Range.
Yeah, this is not a fun range.
Juju or Lazard is fine. Just grab the ADP guy. I honestly probably would have preferred Lazard, Rodgers to Dak. I just hate Dak that much.
Is it just you hate him as a person? Is it because he was open about his troubles after his brother's suicide? Or are you just
the worst person in the world? Yeah. I'm close. I'm a Giants fan, so that.
Okay, all right. That's funny. I didn't. Okay, so there is actually some personal
animosity, of course. Well, I'm also a big Rodgers guy. Like I think there's a legitimate chance he wins MVP this year.
I've been drafting a ton of Rodgers. I'm with you on that. I think the weapons are there in New York. So yeah, honestly, I would not have been opposed to that. We also could have waited for, we could have waited for Geno, and now Geno just went. So maybe we couldn't have.
We were just talking about ownership. Yeah. So what Aaron H said was like, and again, this is a different format. He's like very close to 8% in round one. But like in the later rounds, like he will have 80% guys. Like OBJ's rookie season, he had 80% OBJ exposure. The Elijah Moore, Amon-Ra St. Brown rookie season, he had like 80% exposure to both guys, and just like, and like that's when you do it. That's when
later rounds.
That's why I keep up for Justin Ross every single draft we're doing, much to Chris's chagrin. I want to take advantage of the fact that we have such a DFS pro on the podcast and pick your brain about something else. When we talked about atop the show how dominant quarterbacks were last year, and you also saw that in DFS, where all of the ownership was really congregating around a select few quarterbacks, and it was working. Like you look at like the lead, like the top 50 quarterbacks in the Millie Maker every single week, and it's like, well, there's Mahomes, or maybe not Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, there's Josh Allen, there's Tua, there's maybe like 2 weeks where it was Jared Goff at home, and that was just about it. Whereas like previous years,
Fields killed me.
Oh, Justin Fields, of course,
several weeks in a row.
That was my Exodia quarterback. I was all in on love Fields. Yeah. So you really saw that last year, but in like prior years, you could get away with like a naked whoever, or just grabbing the value quarterback. Do you have any thoughts on that, and like maybe the shifting landscape, or if that was an outlier season?
I think it might be a shifting landscape, to be honest. Just looking at the high end of the quarterback this year, I don't know. I go back and forth because I still think that we're going to be able to find some values later on in drafts. I've been targeting guys like Daniel Jones. I've been drafting a ton of. We better.
we probably don't want 3 QBs on this team, even with Rodgers falling past. Mitchell,
Chig. Can we click on tight end? Chig, Dulcich. I like both those guys a lot. Sophomore tight ends, cheat code in fantasy.
Yeah, I definitely like Chig. Neil,
All
you
right.
have a guy you like here?
Yeah, Chig works for me.
What are you guys' thoughts on McKinnon? Pacheco's nursing an injury that no one's talking about, isn't in camp.
Oh, is he really? I didn't know that.
He was like what, the RB7 over the last 8 weeks of last season. Good spike week upside, perfect for the best ball format. We don't have a single share, I don't think.
Of McKinnon.
Yeah,
yeah. I've started drafting him a little bit. I'm definitely underweight to the field, but I've started drafting a little bit of McKinnon.
Yeah, I've definitely taken him a little, but the problem is I think the Chiefs know what he is, and he's a guy that they don't want to use a lot in the season because they like him as a weapon later in the season and into the playoffs.
Into the best ball playoffs or into the real playoffs?
The real playoffs. So yeah, like kind of like what they did last year. They really started to ramp up his usage late in the season.
Well, that's great.
But that was during the best ball playoffs,
right? Which was during. But I think but then he basically disappeared in the playoffs, and I bet they prefer it to be a little bit farther down where they start going away from him. The problem is he just goes near guys that could legit become bell cows on their team. Elijah Mitchell, Jalen Warren, Kendre Miller, even. Like he isn't going to be a good runner. He is going to be a guy that catches some passes and scores some touchdowns, which the touchdowns are good. We're on the clock here. Mitchell
also just went.
Warren, Miller, Mingo.
I mean, I'd be okay with Elijah Mitchell.
I probably like Kendre the most, but I'm cool with that. Yeah.
So yeah, he's just not a guy that's going to like flourish in this format. I think usually, I mean, his TD rate was like ridiculous too. Like
that was, but like that's also a function of the offense. Those like short, like 0.01 ADOT shovel pass touchdowns.
Right.
So yeah, last year, week 12, 14 fantasy points, then 35, then 34, then 13, then 23. I mean, that could win you $1 million. Do you hate $1 million, Chris? Is that what you're telling me?
No, I don't hate $1 million.
You could actually win $3 million when you think about it.
Wow.
In BBM4.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean,
split 3 ways.
Oh, 3 ways. That's right.
None for Thomas this week.
Yeah, he's not here. He's going to be so mad.
Yeah. Kendre Mingo. Yeah, we're gonna have gross tight ends, but that's fine.
And the Pacheco injury. I mean, how are you not drafting some CEH now?
I've been drafting a ton of CEH, to be honest with you.
Oh god.
It's I mean, he's the last round. You can get him in the last round in most drafts. And so last year, I think I played it perfectly last year. I drafted virtually 0 CEH. I drafted a ton of McKinnon, and early on I was drafting a lot of Pacheco, and then as the ADP flipped, as Pacheco came on early on, I drafted a lot of Jerick McKinnon late. I think I'm taking the same approach this year, just like whoever is the best value in the Chiefs backfield. I think it's going to be a rotation there. I'd rather wait and get. So I've been drafting probably the most of CEH, followed by McKinnon, followed by Pacheco so far. And I think it works. Like he doesn't.
Well, and you have a lot of Fournette too, and he's going to sign there in 2 months.
No, I have not. I like Fournette best of those guys, but I still have drafted very little Fournette, to be honest with you. I just go to like CPAT instead, or like or CEH. So still haven't drafted a ton of Fournette.
CEH is the only back in that backfield that can do everything that they want him to do. If McKinnon goes down, CEH is filling that role. If Pacheco is down, CEH is filling that role. McKinnon's not filling Pacheco's role, and Pacheco's not filling McKinnon's role.
Yep.
I mean, I think he just stinks.
He definitely is not very good, but
no player has hurt my reputation in the industry more than CEH.
Were you a big CEH guy early on?
Yeah, I mean, rookie season, Andy Reid said he was better than Brian Westbrook and was going to be their bell cow and is the best offense in football. And he just caught 90 passes the year before. I'm like, all right, I'll trust Andy Reid. And I should have trusted Brett Whitefield, who said he was a day 3 talent.
I'm going to tell you my take on that, but we've got our pick coming up. Who do we like here?
Gerald Everett, Jerome Ford.
Oh, I like Gerald Everett. Yeah.
We definitely
for a team too.
Rashi
yeah,
Rice
exactly.
has fallen pretty far past ADP if he makes it to us.
I really wish the Chiefs just didn't draft bad wide receivers.
I know. What are they doing?
Fun.
They're just like, we have Patrick Mahomes. He can throw it to anybody. It doesn't matter.
That's right.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but this is a perfect weekly bet, whatever they call that tournament where you win weekly, because we have almost entirely week 5 and week 7 buys.
Yeah.
Wow.
Every other week we're gonna crush it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even in this format, whatever the Best Ball Mania, they should do like bonuses for whoever wins the most week, like just like 10K.
I mean, they're moving that direction with the regular season winner or in like the top 10,000 or whatever winning money. So
it does fix the sweat problem of like nobody caring about their best ball teams for the first.
Oh, that's a great point.
10 weeks of the year, or even more.
Get us on the Underdog app, so we're already there. And now, they have pick'em stuff going on too. Like, come on, this is perfect.
Come on, yeah.
All right.
If you're listening, Underdog, hire us as your product developers.
Right.
Neil, what were you going to say? Oh no, we're on the clock.
Oh yeah, after our
Roshan, Tyquan, Singletary, Ford,
and then just we're done at running back.
Works for me.
Or I mean, we can use some wide receivers.
Yeah, a Mims as a Denver Chargers run back.
Yeah, we could do that. I have drafted very little Mims, and I've heard a lot more buzz about him recently, so I feel like I've been making a mistake, and I've started to get him in there a little bit, incorporate him into my lineups.
So that was my guy. I said he had the second best analytics profile in the class. I really believe in his talent. I'm friends with his mom now because of all my Twitter threads about him. I just I don't know. It's a crowded room where I know he was handpicked by a GOAT in Sean Payton, but it's, Jerry Jeudy's still that alpha to me. They're hyping up Greg Dulcich. Cortland Sutton is at least a warm body. Tim Patrick has had spurts. But yeah, maybe he's just as good as I thought he was. And Sean Payton starts him opposite, because I don't think Sutton's that good. Tim Patrick's a big question mark. Who knows? The one knock on him was that he's like raw, and he isn't a refined route runner. So like, I always thought like he's going to be a star. It just might take like a year or two, like it did Tyler Lockett. And early on, he's kind of primarily a deep threat. But to that point, I guess that's beneficial in best ball for the spike weeks.
Right. You don't have to worry about when it's coming. It'll just come some week, the deep ball. Yeah. I know nothing. So I don't watch college football. So that's part of probably a negative for me, is that I don't know much about rookies except for what I read. And I just had not heard, Marvin Mims wasn't even on my radar until like this past week. People started seeing stuff about him on Twitter. So I missed whenever you were talking about him, Scott. I don't know how I missed that if it was on Twitter.
Yeah. PFF had him as like the wide receiver 20, 33rd team had him as wide receiver 41. And yeah,
in the draft or overall?
In the class.
Oh, in the class. Yeah. I was going to say,
like you were saying, like round 5 talent, round 7 is what 30-13. And I was saying he's a top 3 player in this class.
Okay. So you're an outlier in terms of your,
I mean, I could be wrong. It's just like, I'm very analytics driven, and just the analytics, everything that's predictive and important, we're off the charts.
Yeah. That seems like,
it was also a weak class, I think.
I mean, especially when you can use those analytics to pinpoint players later in drafts, that seems like a good time to take advantage of what you know analytically.
Yeah, I mean that's been money. Like I said, Aaron H was all in on Amon-Ra St. Brown and Elijah Moore as rookies. So was I. And like before the draft, again, this is MFL 10, not Underdog, but before the draft, those guys were like round 20.
Right.
So we're probably done at QB. We could probably add another running back. Definitely add another wide receiver. Probably want another tight end with only Chig and Everett. That's not like a super strong room. There's none coming up right here.
John Mechie stands out to me.
I don't hate that.
I was going to say DPJ. It sounds like you guys are not big on Peoples-Jones this year.
I'm just an Elijah guy. I think Elijah just cucks him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I've drafted DPJ unless I had Watson already.
Okay.
I mean, that's another offense that could just go nuclear this year.
Right. That is a good example one that's not being drafted super early. I've been so the offense that I've been investing probably the most in is Baltimore. I've actually been sounds like you guys are not really drafting a ton of Lamar Jackson. I've been drafting a lot of Lamar Jackson. And so when I started drafting, it was Lamar Jackson. I think he was actually going after Justin Fields. So like it was like, man, I like Lamar Jackson. Like, I think he's got bigger upside than Justin Fields, or like more likely to hit that upside at the very least. Now at this point, I'm like, I should probably start drafting some Justin Fields because he's really falling more and more in drafts.
Yeah. All right, we're on the clock here.
What do you think
Kenneth
about Khalil
Gainwell?
Shakir? I actually like Kenneth Gainwell at this ADP.
I'm cool with it.
184 works for me.
Yeah, I am not trying to not draft Lamar. I seem to not be able to get him too often, just the way my drafts have fallen or whatnot. But I do love that Ravens Dolphins Week 17 game, and when I can get Tyreek, Waddle, Andrews, and then all that. I mean, outside of OBJ, I'm very happy drafting any of the Ravens wide receivers with how late they go.
Yeah.
So the last time Todd Monken called plays at the NFL level, a combination of Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick combined for the third most passing yards in NFL history. And it's like, imagine, like that sort of upside with like the greatest running quarterback of all time. I just still struggle to buy into the notion that Lamar can sustain more than 1.5 pass catchers for fantasy.
Yeah, but I
especially
he's not
with
somebody that I stack up a ton. But like I guess I'm okay with that. Like just drafting with, if I can get Andrews, I'll just draft Andrews and then maybe one more pass catcher. Otherwise, sometimes I'll let it go to chance. Like I think in order I prefer Bateman and then Flowers and then a distant third OBJ. But like if Bateman and Flowers both go, then I'm like, all right, if I don't have another pass catcher, I'll go to OBJ. And then even like if I can't get anybody, then I guess Isaiah Likely, I'll take that shot in the last round. I don't love it, but like it's a backup plan, I guess.
I think if Roman were still there, Likely would be one of my most drafted players in this format. Just like the handcuff upside of, maybe he, gets Mark Andrews volume like he did last year. But with the regime change, I think it's less of a given. He'd walk into that ridiculous target share he had last year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. What I was going to say way back, what I was going to say,
right.
The CEH's rookie year when he was so hyped. And I was like, he's a rookie. We don't know what he is. We don't know if he's injury prone, whatever. I drafted 1 million shares of, is it Derek Williams? So they had
Damian Williams.
Yeah.
Darryl.
No, yeah, it was Darryl. So it was funny because
1L.
I think Damian Williams was like 100% drafted in those years. Like even though he was out for the season, everybody was drafting Damian Williams. They could not figure out which D Williams, but I drafted like, oh, we got to go.
I wanted Hayden Hurst.
Yeah, so did I. Is there a tight end you want to close out with?
Ferguson for the stack?
Oh, we could go Ferguson for the stack.
Yeah, I don't mind that. Hunter Henry would be another guy that I like.
I do like, in general, I prefer Hunter Henry when we're stacking. I don't really care. It's kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, it's DFS, right? Like stacking with the tight end. That's just,
Yeah, that's true.
For an unpredictable position.
But so anyway, I drafted 1 million shares. Like I think I actually had like 40+% of Darryl Williams. So that was my first year doing best ball, and I had a ton of shares of Darryl Williams because I could get him in like one of the later rounds. And he was the RB2 at the time. They were talking him up all summer. Nobody was drafting him early, and he did shit that year. And then the following year, same exact situation. I did not draft any Darryl Williams, and of course he was very good that year. So that was pretty frustrating for me. But it's been just a consistent thing for me, I guess. I go contrarian with my Kansas City running backs. I'm like, all of them are in a good situation. I'm going to take the guy I don't have to spend up for.
Yeah, that's the play. You're like, maybe they are the thing for that offense in the weeks that matter, or just as, whatever it is. Like, there's not a lot of bad times to have the Kansas City Chiefs running back. What do we want to close out this draft with? We have 2 running backs, or 2 QBs, 5 running backs, 7 wide receiver, 3 tight end.
To me, it's wide receiver. Like just generally where I would go here.
Yeah.
I think looking at the talent of our wide receivers, I think that's the way.
Yeah. Tim Patrick, Slayton. I'm trying to see if anybody like correlates.
I don't hate Tim Patrick. We already have Marvin Mims, so I don't know if that means.
Yeah. What about Slayton? I mean, maybe he's the guy for the Giants. I mean, who knows, really?
Could be. Yeah.
I just hate gambling on that because I think Waller's the wide receiver one, and then it could just be like a massive committee where you really don't know who the starters are.
I don't disagree, but at this range, like who's not a gamble here?
Justin Ross.
Oh,
you were gonna say
we should have gone with you. I think I probably have 0 shares of Justin Ross. Can you?
We need to get Neil a share.
Can you sell me on Justin Ross?
Yeah. So once upon a time, many years ago, he had the best age-adjusted yards per route run season in PFF history. He outproduced T. Higgins, Hunter Renfrow, Amari Rodgers, despite being multiple years younger. Elite prospect who was supposed to go round 1, and then he had this spine injury. He also had a lower leg injury. So the Chiefs didn't draft him. There was a question if he would ever play football again, but he so they didn't draft him, but they kept him on IR all year. He's getting some buzz in camp. Sky Moore isn't talented. Rashee Rice isn't talented. Kadarius Toney is talented, but he's a nutcase. This is a guy with like massive PPR potential, great possession receiver, or he's just like absolutely cooked. But he's tethered to the greatest quarterback in football. And yeah.
How old is Justin Ross?
23. Let's see.
I was like, is he like a veteran whose career I missed? Like I thought he was a rookie or like.
Yeah, he's 23. He was on IR all of last year as a rookie.
Okay.
But the year before his final collegiate season, like early mock drafts were like he's going top 5. This is Larry Fitzgerald 2.0 is what we would hear. And then just the spinal issue, like doctors, he consulted doctors, multiple said he should never play football again. And then he found one who said he can play.
Yeah, that's I agree with Brian. Spinal injury does sound kind of scary. So I've actually been drafting here and there. I've been drafting Richie James. Like after he signed with the Chiefs, I was like, all right, one more wide receiver who's getting the ball thrown to him by the best quarterback in the NFL. But I don't know that I don't know if he's gonna get much playing time. I have no idea what to expect from the Chiefs wide receiver.
Wait, what you actually took Darius Slayton? You didn't take Justin Ross?
Yeah, it was way too late.
We were too late. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Then that's amazing. Yeah, I just love going Galaxy brain. Like 2020, I was all in on Antonio Brown. I had him on every single, like he wasn't on a team. And, people were saying he was never going to play football again. And I didn't play underdog that year, but I think he had like 100-yard games and 3 straight to close out.
Did he really? Man.
Let's see.
Yeah, the Bucks year. That sounds about right.
He scored 18, 12, 31, weeks 14, 15, 16. Or 15, 16, 17. But yeah, I like you want to chase upside because like you could still win it all if your round 18 pick does nothing. Like I'm sure that happens a lot.
Oh, for sure.
And ideally you're so stacked that you need kind of someone like a real difference maker to crack lineups.
Yeah, that was his rookie year. Chase Claypool was a fun like round 18 pick.
Sophomore season, DJ Chark, that was a big one for me.
Oh yeah.
I definitely like scrolling down in the even round 17, not just 18, and picking guys that probably aren't being drafted every single draft.
Right.
Mixing it up.
Because if they go off, you're just gonna go far ahead of the field.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
all right.
Yeah.
So we finished out the draft with Austin Eckler, CeeDee Lamb, Keenan Allen, Joe Mixon, Justin Herbert, Tyler Lockett, Quentin Johnson, James Conner, Dak Prescott, Alan Lazard, Chig, Elijah Mitchell, Gerald Everett, Marvin Mims, John Mechie, Kenneth Gainwell, Jake Ferguson, and Darius Slayton. Probably one of the more correlated teams that we've drafted so far. Funny enough.
I like it. I like it quite a bit.
I think it would have won $3 million if we took Justin Ross.
That's
going to win like 10.
That's going to be our downfall. It's going to be Justin Ross goes for 25 fantasy points in week 17. We're going to end up in 60th place and win a Coke, and then we're going to lose out on $3 million.
The bench Mahomes because they locked up the 1 seed, and Chad Henne or whoever comes in with the backups, and Ross just goes nuclear. That's what's going to happen.
Well,
all right. Thanks, Neil, for joining us. Anything you have to plug or anything? I know we already talked about High Stakes, which is a great podcast everyone should listen to and try to learn how to become a you have more than just DFS pros on there. I know you've had Pat Crane on it. Talk best ball.
I've had Pat Corain, I've had Chess Liam, I've had Felix Castro. So 3 best ball Millie Maker winners. I think that's the only Millie Maker. I've had Eric Byam for a lot of best ball people on the pod also. And yeah, I'm on Stochastic, and you can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. That's where I post all my stuff.
Nice. Scott, any final thoughts?
No, this is great. Good team.
All right. We'll be back. We are possibly switching up the schedule a little bit next week. It might be Wednesday or Thursday. We're still figuring it out with July 4th holiday. We're trying to line up a guest for that one too, but we'll be back at some time next week. So come join us and draft with us.